What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be looking at my current Spright variant of choice, which is Spright Nimble for hire. These engines work really well together because they allow you to go into a lot of different monster types, meaning that you can make your for hire monsters really easily. The best part about this deck is the fact that the three different engines kind of all coincide and bridge over to each other so that one engine can get you access to another engine. And because of this, and also because they share all level 2 monsters and different extract monsters that kind of bridge the engines to one another, you can go into them all throughout the different points of a combo, which means that you can get in all your lines in different kind of freestyle-y ways through the course of a turn. But without further ado, let's get right into the deck profile, starting off with our main deck. And to start things off, we're playing 3 copies of Spright Blue. This is really good, adds another Spright monster from deck to hand, trigger effect, just general good stuff. Next up, we're playing 2 copies of Spright Jet. And the reason that we're only playing 2 copies of Jet is because we're only playing 2 copies of our starter. And the reason that I decided to do this is because I don't really like the trap in this deck. You're not really missing much by only playing 2 Jets because you don't lose a lot of card advantage. And it gives room for us to play something else like 2 copies of Red. The reason I like playing 2 copies of Red is because you have to expend resources a lot in this deck, especially because you're dealing with different monster types, meaning that a lot of the time, if you don't open up an ability to go into a lot of different monster types, you're going to need to use a Thunder. And if you have Spright Red in your hand, you don't have something easily expendable like Jet or Blue on the field, then you're going to have to expend one of your reds in order to go into one of your for hire monsters. And if you're only playing 1 red, then you have nothing here to go into later, and you're almost always wanting to use Spright Red as a part of your end board pieces. So if you use one of your reds to go into something early, that means you can go into one of your other reds later in the game. It's just really good to see reds. You want to kind of max out on as many Spright names as you can justify, which is why we're also playing 1 copy of Carrot, which is generally good to spell and trap negate, which you can kind of hope to end on both of these on your end board, as well as like at least 1 extra deck monster, so you can get some kind of pop somewhere and you can trigger more effects off your other cards. But you kind of want to have these different options for ways that you can negate in the deck. And then you're also playing 1 copy of Spright's Pixies. And the reason we're playing Spright Pixies is because nobody expects this card. It's a generally really good card, and you can add it off of something like your Spright Blue. When you go to set a starter on your opponent's turn, you can special summon your Spright Blue, and then you get the trigger effect. You can add the Pixies to hand on your opponent's turn. By leaving a slot open here, you'll also get something in order to use for either your Spright Red or your Spright Carrot as a tribute effect, or something like for an IP slot that you can go into something like SP for later. But you immediately get your Pixies to hand, and I've killed people in their damage calculation just off of Pixies. And Pixies are generally a good card, especially if it's an unknown variable. They don't, like, oftentimes because the Spright deck, we don't play the Gamma Burst in the main. So when they see a set card, they usually have, like, the precognitive knowledge that it is a starter because they watched you add it with something like Jet. Meaning that they know that you don't have Gamma Burst, so they just swing over things. And if you can just quick effects, especially if it's an unknown, you can pop a Pixies. You're basically going to deal half their life points in damage, and they're basically not going to be able to kill you that turn. And another really good thing about the Pixies is the fact that, say if you get something like Nibiru, if you couldn't get your red out in time, and you got Nibiru, then you can kind of use Pixies on your own turn, or on their turn to stop their Nibiru, like just swing over things, and then you're able to rebuild, because most of the card combos in this deck is 1 or 2 card combos, and then you can use your kind of your Nibiru, whether you Nibiru or they Nibiru, you can use your token as a different monster type, you can use your whatever, to go from there, and you can basically chip away at their thing, or if you just need to swing over anything, Pixies is just really, really good to have in the main deck as a searchable body. Moving on, we're playing our for hire line, or our for hire engine, which is 3 copies of Rex. Rex is just really generally good because we're only playing 1 copy of the others, meaning that with only 1 copy of Rookie for hire in the deck, you're only using 1 copy of your Rex for a search advantage. However, this is not really an issue. That's why some people play Mayhem for hire, which is the other quick play spell for hires. But I don't play it because, generally speaking, if you have two Rexes left that you can use, it doesn't really matter that you can't really add anything because you're always just going to use these 2 extra Rexes for their graveyard effect. which is really good because you can banish the Rex and you can add back another Rex, and you can add back any spell trap or for hire card from your deck to your hand, including monsters, or you can special summon monsters. So you can special summon something back like Dompa, or you can special something back like Rafale or another copy of Rex, and you can send it to the graveyard again, and you can use it for a Rafale negate later. You can kind of get it back from the graveyard once you get it there from the Rafale negate, or you can use the Rex to add something back to your hand to use as a Rafale negate. You can add stuff back and they jump around a little bit, and then once you special summon stuff off of the Rex effect, if you're using a monster, then it triggers things like Dompa, where you can pop something, and then you can use that to special summon again and stuff like that. So your Rex is just really generally good. It doesn't matter that you're not really getting your full for hire like searches and stuff, because Rex is basically your combo starter. Like, this is probably one of the best normal summons, if not the best normal summon of the deck. And it gives you access to Beat, which is your combo starter, or your combo piece that allows you to special summon multiple guys and add things from deck to hand. That's how you get your Folly to hand. And then Dompa is really good because it's a level 2, so it just sits there, and it can pop and it can special summon, so you get a lot of different triggers off of just leaving the Dompa to sit on the field. And then Rafale is basically another copy of Pot of Prosperity, because you can reveal off the top equal to the amount of fur hires that you have in your field other than Rafale. And you can add one from your deck to your hand. And it's also a monster negate if you have a fur hire in hand, which you'll basically always have based on having your Rex in the graveyard. So you're always going to have 1 or 2 negates with this guy, and 1 or 2 draws or add from deck to hand, basically. So that does it for our second engine of the deck. Leading us to our third engine, which is our Nimble engine. And as for our Nimbles, we're playing 3 copies of Nimble Beaver and 2 copies of Nimble Angler. So the reason that we're playing 3 copies of Beaver and 2 copies of Angler, it's basically just like the combo, the common ratio here. Some people think that you can play 1 Angler, but if you draw the Angler, it doesn't have a normal summon effect. And if you draw it, then you're basically screwed, because you're unable to use Sprint anymore, because you need this to go from the deck to the graveyard off your Sprint effect. And basically, if you just normal summon a Beaver, then you get the special summon out an Angler, and then you can make these into a Sprint, and then you send this, and you basically go through your entire engine in 1 turn. You just get all 3 Beavers out on field. And even if you don't normal summon the Beaver, you can still go through 1 of these and 2 of these, and you can use this for something else later to get the other Beaver out. So it's just generally really good. You can use it. It's really good also to have 2 of these guys, because if you open it, then it's really bad, but it's also really good to have expendable fish, because it's a different monster type, as well as your beasts that you have in deck due to having your Nimble Beavers, just to go into your for higher plays. Moving on for our spell, traps, and consistency cards, we're playing 2 copies of Spright Starter. And we don't really need to play 3 copies of Spright Starter, because it's not in and of itself. It's something that you want to use once in a turn, then use the second one on the next turn. It's not really something that you're going to be adding all the time with Jet, because you don't see the many Jets. And it's not really something that you need, because most of your things are 1 to 2 card combos, and it's better to use the slots in order to get into your actual combo starters. We're using 3 copies of Fossil Dig, so essentially we're playing 6 copies of Rex. And then we're using 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity, because you can afford to use it. And most of the time I only banish 3 off of this, because you only need to see 1 of your guys, basically, because there's no way that you're not opening a Spright or a normal summon in your opening hand. It's just the ratios just allow you to do that every time. So if you basically you can use this for add a hand trap, add anything that you need. And you can just basically look at your top 3 and just add 1, because you're adding things from deck to hand anyways constantly, and you're able to look at things with cards like Rafale later in your combo. So moving on, we're going to look at our copies of our non-engine slots, and we're using 2 copies of Bestials. We're using 1 Druisworm and 1 Magnamon. Magnamon is really, really good for the deck, because you can add your Rafale from deck to hand. And you're always going to have a dark monster, at least in your grave, because you have your Sprights, and we also have other cards you can use for later turns. But it's not bad in this meta. There's just a good amount of, at least in top tables, there's a lot of light and dark monsters, and Magnamon is really both of the Bestials in main deck. You don't necessarily need to main deck them, because I really like them, because you're linking so constantly, and the dragons are an uncommon monster type that basically the only restriction it will have is that you won't be able to add your Rafale with the full go, but you'll already be able to add the Rafale off of your Magnemite by the end of the turn. So you get an extra monster type, and you get a free body on board that you can use for linking, and then you can also just use that as an interruption on your opponent's turn. Next up, we're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom, just good this format. And then next, we're playing 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. So the reason that we're playing 2 copies of Ghost Ogre in the main is because Ghost Ogre, well, it's just, first of all, it's generally just fine in this format because there's a lot of field spells, and it's pretty good against the fire decks, and it's not bad against Yubel. But the reason that we play it specifically is because of our other non-engine. I'll show just now. We're playing 1 copy of Nibiru, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just good, 1 copy of Talents, and 1 copy of Ibli. So the reason we're playing Ghost Ogre is because if you summon out their Ibli your Ibli onto their field, and then say they normal summon some monster, and they just go, okay, normal summon, and then most of the time when they use their normal summon, it'll be like their normal summon for their deck. So most of the time once they do that, especially because you have the Ibli on field, and you're going to have to link this into something random basically, unless you have like a link 2 in your engine for your deck, they just link this, and then you're almost always going to want to use your normal summon effect to add another piece of your engine from deck to hand. So if you have the Ghost Ogre and they say normal summoning something here, and then they add use an effect to add, then you just Ghost Ogre it, you pop it, they don't have the normal summon anymore, and then they're just sitting here with an Ibli, and what are you going to do? You're already normal summoned, unless you have a spell or a trap or a different monster you can use. You can't special summon anything, so you already normal summoned it, you don't have anything here, so you're just sitting on an Ibli, basically, because they got greedy and wanted to add a card from deck to hand. And it's just generally good for other things as well, but that's the main interaction, that you just hold onto your Ghost Ogre until you have the Ibli out, and then you just try and stop them on the first turn, and then you can basically get a pass turn on that most of the time. So that does it for the main deck. 1 copy of Talents in the main, I think is really good. Even if it's just the 1 copy, you can do things like, you have your quick play spells, so like if you want to go starter in the start of main phase, like it's pretty good that you can just basically, it doesn't even matter necessarily that if your thing gets negated, because you have so many options that no matter what, whatever's on the field is able to be used as material anyway. So if you're having something set on the field and it gets negated, then you just get so much free advantage by just getting Talents. You can just get card knowledge, you can get whatever you want, but everything can go into other things, because like if you get your normal summon negated but you have a Spright, then you still go into Sprint, you still get your bonuses, or if it depends on what your normal summon was, you can go into your for hires right away and go into that line. So it's just generally like, it doesn't really matter if you get negated once, because then you get a lot of card advantage off of the Talents, and you're able to go into different methods anyway. So guys, that does it for the main deck. Without further ado, let's hop into the extra deck. All right, guys, so we are back with the extra deck, and starting things off with our lineup, we're going to be looking at 1 copy of Fulgo, Justice for Hire. So Fulgo is really good because he's kind of your main boss monster for your for hire part of the deck, and he's not necessarily going to be on your end board every field, because he requires 3 different monster types to be able to make him. But not only it's very versatile, because not only is it really good to get into off of your pre-existing for hire engine, because if you have multiple for hires on the field, once a card is drawn by battle or card effect, you can draw 1 card just via having Fulgo on the field, but you can actually draw 3 cards if you have 3 different other for hire monsters on the field other than Fulgo. So you can use that in order to gain a lot of card advantage, but you can also use it to get access to your entire for hire engine off of something like your Nimble engine and then a Spright monster, because you'll have a Thunder, a Fish, and a Beast. Or if you want to link into something else and go into something else early, then you'll be able to use that as material, depending on how your interactions are looking. But Fulgo actually can special summon out your Rex directly from deck, and then you can use the Rex to go into the full rest of the for hire combo. So it's a really good piece for your end board, and something that is really good to go into, but you don't necessarily need to play more than 1, because it's difficult to go into in grind games. At that point, you're not really going to have the monster type material to be able to go into it like that easily. But we do actually play 2 copies of our other for hire, which is Donner, Dagger for Hire, and this is part of your main for hire combo. And not only this, but it's really just a generally good piece of removal that is used in other decks as well. But for your sake of your combo for hires, it special summons out 2 from your deck or from your graveyard. So after special summoning 2 from graveyard, you can activate their own effects, which activate when they're special summoned. You can also activate ones that exist on your board in later turns, not only to pop something and special summon back, and then you can use other effects like your Dompa to pop again, and you get more effects off of that. Next up, we're playing 1 copy of IP and 1 copy of SP. IP is really good in the deck because you're almost always going to end on IP, considering the fact that you have a lot of excess materials laying on your board, whether it be Spright monsters that you always want to end on anyway, or other linked monsters. You're basically always going to have the ability to go into something like SP, or alternatively something like your copy of Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Unicorn, which we're also playing, which is really good to go off of your IP, because you'll have material to be able to make things, and empty slots as well because of things like your starter, and it's generally good to just have in your deck. Next up, we're playing one copy of Spright Sprint, and Spright Sprint is also a main part of your combo. Not only is he really good to leave on your field because he has the fact that he can bounce a card back to the hand, but you can also use him, which means that you can also use him for your Spright monsters effects, because to gain the pop off the negative as well. But he's really good to go into things like your Gigantic Spright because it'll boost him up to 3200 attack. And he's also really good because it's a main combo piece relating to your Nimble engine, which will get you access to 2 Beavers by pitching 1 copy of your Angler from deck to graveyard. Then finally, we're playing 1 copy of Underworld Goddess. Underworld Goddess is really good. Like I said, there's a lot of material going from the field and off the field, and it's just really good to have a good kind of stable body on the field in grind games. Moving on to Xyz monsters, we're playing 1 copy of Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright is really good because it allows you access to your entire Spright engine off of something like Blue, and then you get Jet, and you can kind of go through your Spright line. But it's also really good because I like ending on this after making something like a Sprint, because it gets 3200. You can sit on the board and you can use it for not only just a big body to get back to your turn with, so you can use the effect again, but you can also use it if you need to use one of your carrot or your red negates. You can use this as material rather than having to use something like your SP or your IP. So it's really good for that, and it's also really good because at the end of the turn you special summon Gigantic Spright, and then you get to use it and what you summon when you summon your Ibly. So you can summon your Ibly from your deck, and then you immediately just get a lock on the field by using Gigantic Spright, whether or not you have material. Next, we're playing 1 copy of Gym Buster. It's just a negate when you have your Jet and your Blue on field, which are really expendable kind of pieces. Then we're playing 1 copy of Cat Shark, which is really good for OTKing. It's good in terms of not only things like your Gigantic Spright, but like a lot of people don't really understand the capacity that this deck has in the battle step, or in the battle phase and the damage step, and damage calculation between this and the Pixies. Like, and also just the fact that you're able to switch monsters positions because you're special summoning and then using things like on their turn and stuff to special summon things out. You can special summon things in defense mode or in attack mode and then boost them and do different things like that. So the deck is pretty volatile in their battle phase. Speaking of, people don't expect Shadow Mosquito either, which is really volatile in the damage step as well, damage calculations. And just sitting with this thing on the field, you can win games, and it's especially good for time because people don't really know how to play against this thing in time. And then to round off the extra deck, we're just playing the Zeus package with a Downer and a Zeus. It's just generally good. So without further ado, we'll get into our side deck. All right, guys. So to finish off the deck profile portion of the video, we're going to go over my side deck. And starting off with the side, we're playing 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Dark Ruler is really good, just generally, like, especially with this deck. Once you turn off their kind of abilities, you're able to pick apart the board really easily with things just like General Pops, banishes, sends, like spins, stuff like that. So it's a pretty good look to just basically say, turn off everything, and then let's go on to the next section of the turn. Moving on, we're playing 3 copies of Droll. So originally, these 3 copies of Droll were in the main deck, and we substituted them for the 1 copy of Talents, and then the 2 copies of the Ghost Ogre. I just found generally, like, if you're playing a lot of Rogue, like, Droll is very good, but it's a very hit or miss card, especially in this format. So I decided to play Droll in the side, just because generally there's a lot more utility cases where you can use the Ogre and the talents in a game-to-game basis without much, like, you're always going to have some kind of use for them in most matchups. So we moved the Droll over to the side. You can kind of decide where you want to place that, but that was my final verdict. Next up, we're moving on with 1 copy of Smashers. It's really good. It's just searchable. It's good removal if you need to banish something. It's just kind of a specific target. 1 Callby, 1 Harpies. Then next up, we're playing 2 copies of Dark Hole. So the reason we're playing 2 copies of Dark Hole is just because like blowout cards like this are really good, and the reason that we're playing Dark Hole over something like Raigeki is because of Mimighouls. So if you have something on your side of the field, you can get rid of it too. And at the end of the day, you don't have a whole lot to lose with playing a card like Dark Hole, because you have so many normal summons that allow you for extension in the deck, and access to so many things in your extra deck that it's not really that much of a disadvantage. Next up, we're playing 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier. It's just good going first side, and then we're playing 2 copies of Evenly Matched, which you'll usually side in with your Dark Ruler. So that does it for the side deck, and I guess we're getting on to the combo section and the final section of this video. Alright guys, so we are back with the combo tutorial section of the video, and the first combo we're going to be looking at here is if you have Rex as your normal summon, you have any Spright monster in your hand. So we're going to start off by normal summoning Rex and activating his effect to add a copy of Rookie for Hire from deck to hand. Next up, we will special summon our blue here, and you can either have 2 options, is you can either add your copy of red or you can add your copy of Jet. In a perfect world where you have no interruptions, you're going to add your copy of Jet here. But if you are worried about getting Nibiru, you have pre-knowledge that he could have Nibiru in his hand. What you'd want to do is you'd want to special summon out your red here, but at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world if you do get Nibiru on this combo. The only difference is if you get Nibiru here, you're going to have to expend your sprint a little bit earlier, or you're going to have to, like if you don't have access to something like your Jet, so if you have your Jet, you're going to have access to your copy of Starter, so it's not that bad if you do get Nibiru, because you will be able to activate your Rex in Graveyard, and you will be able to activate your Starter to continue to kind of extend. But in the worst case scenario, like you can special summon out your red here. You may have to expend him here, but if you have access to your Starter anyway, you can go back into him later. So you could have your red here, but in a perfect world, we're going to use our copy of Jet, assuming that we don't care that our for hire combo could get interrupted, because you will have 5 cards on your either field or your graveyard. You'll have 5 summons done by the time that your for hire combo is up and running. You can get interrupted on the 5th summon, which is a part of your for hire combo. So assuming that we don't get interrupted here, we're going to special summon out our copy of Jet, and we're going to add from deck to hand our copy of our Starter. So here we have Rookie and Starter in our hand, and then we're going to activate our Rookie Prior in order to send our Rex in order to special summon out our copy of Beat. From here, we are going to use one of our 2 sprites with our Beat in order to make our copy of Donner, Dagger for Hire, and then we're going to activate Donner's effect in order to send him from the deck from the field to the graveyard, and special summon out our Beat, and then subsequently special summon out our Rex. From here, we'll activate Beat's effect because Rex was special summoned while he's on the field. You add your copy of Rafale, and then you can activate Beat's effect to special summon out your Rafale to your field from your hand. Then you activate Rafale's effect on summon. You can reveal the top 2 cards, and you can add one of them from your deck to your hand, so you'll have an extra card here in your hand. And then from here, you do have the option of making your full go because we have 3 different card types, but you want to avoid using Rex for your full go because if you don't want to special summon out your Dampa with your full go, you want to always special summon out another copy of your Rex, so you can guarantee that you have a Rex in the graveyard to banish, so you can add back a for hire card from your graveyard to your hand, so you always have a discard with Rafale for monster negate. So what we're going to do here instead is we're going to use our copy of Rex, and our copy of Beat, doesn't really matter which 2 you use, for our copy of Sprint. So then we activate our Sprint effect, and this is where we get our Nimble engine in by pitching our copy of Nimble Angler off his effect, and then special summoning out our 2 copies of our Nimble Beaver. From here, if you have any other card, if you had any other Spright card in your hand, you would have special summoned at this point, and you would have kept your Beat on the field, because from here you could have went into your full go from this exact line. But at this stage, you're probably going to want to use your Sprint and your Beaver for a copy of your Gigantic Spright. This is assuming that we're not going to go into full go this turn. Then we can activate our copy of Gigantic Spright, getting rid of our Beaver for our copy of Ibly. Next up, we'll use our copy of Ibly and our copy of Beaver in order to make an IP. And then you can use your copy of starter here to special out your copy of red. So immediately right now you have a red, which can pop the gigantic. The gigantic is at 3,200 because the sprint is under it. You have a red that can pop either the jet, or you can pop your gigantic sprite to get a pop. In addition to your negation, you have an IP with multiple things that you can use as material. And then with your Rafale, at the end of your turn here, you're going to want to banish your copy of Rex from the graveyard in order to add back your copy of Beat to your hand. So now your Rex is also a monster negation. So you have 2 monster negations and an IP plus a 3,200 guy here. And they will also have an Ibley locking their side of the field. You also have your 3 other cards that you started with, and you have your infinite impermanence in hand. It's not necessarily an infinite impermanence, but whatever card you drew. And at this stage, you could also, if you'd gone into your Folgo, if you had any other Sprite monster in your hand, you would have left your Beat on field the first time. You still would have had your Beat back in your hand because of your Rex, but this Sprite Jet would have been gone, and you could have had something like your Dampa here. This IP Masquerade would have been here, and then your copy of Folgo would have been sitting up here like this. So those are the 2 options that you can have for your end board. Obviously, like, your zones don't have to be exactly like this, but that's how it would have been for us. But yeah, this is how you essentially set up the main combo. So you'll either have a pop here, a draw 1 here, up to a draw 3, depending on how many for hires you have. If you had another for hire on field somehow here, like if you activate your Rex effect later in the turn, or you summon out your Beat off of your Dampa in the middle of the turn after you free up some zones by using an IP or something like that, or after popping something, then you could get a draw 3, you could get a draw 1. It kind of depends. And then you'd have 2 monster negates and a pop, and then this would be another pop if you had went the route of using your Beat, and if you had another Sprite monster in your hand for an extension. Otherwise, you just have something like this, which is just your basic guaranteed part of the combo unless you get interrupted. So that's basically what your 2-card combo with Rex looks like if you go into your for hire line without having to activate your Dampa. All right, so your next 2-card combo that you have here is if you have your Nimble Beaver as your normal summon, and you have also a Sprite Blue in your hand. So we normal summon our Beaver, and we activate Beaver's effect to special summon out our first copy of our Nimble Angler from deck. From here, we special summon out our blue, and this combo is going to be a lot more Nibiru heavy than the first one. So like from here, you could special out your red again, like I mentioned before, but we're just going to assume that we didn't get Nibiru. So we're going to special summon out our Jet, and then we're going to activate our Jet effect in order to add our copy of Sprite Starter. And then we immediately have 3 different monster types on the field. So we get to go into our Folgo here, and then this is how we get access to our for hire engine. So we activate Folgo's effect to special summon out our copy of Rex. And then we activate Rex's effect, and it's essentially the same as the last combo. So you had Rookie, you use Rookie on Rex, use that to summon your Beat, use the Beat and the other guy to make your copy of wherever Donner is. Donner, where you go? Right here. Donner. Activate Donner effect. Special summon out your Beat and your Rex. You activate Beast effect. Add your Rafale, especially your Rafale. Rafale effect adds. Then from here, you get to use these 2 for your copy of Sprite Sprint. Sprite Sprint's effect. Send your second copy of your Nimble Angler. Special summon out your 2 copies of Beaver. Use your Sprint and your Beaver to summon out your Gigantic. Use your Gigantic to summon out your Ibley. Use your Beaver with your Ibley. And you make your copy of IP Masquerade. From here, you can activate your starter. The Ibley is going to be there on their side of the field. Give them the lock. Then you will use your copy of starter for your red, who's in your hand that I just put in my graveyard, or who's in your deck that I just put in my graveyard. And then this would be your end board. So you'd have the ability to, in the end phase, activate your Rex's effect to banish himself and add back your copy of Beat. So now this is monster negate. This is monster negate and a pop because you have something to pop it with. If you had somehow you had another copy of something or 2 copies of something with your for hires, if you had any extenders, you could have a draw 3 here, but most of the time you're just gonna have a draw 1 off your Rafale with your Fulgo, and then you also have your IP. You can use this, you can use this, you can use this. Whatever you have, if you have extra summons and stuff like that too, you can use that. You don't necessarily even always have, like if you have the red in your hand, then you will have the copy of your, like if you started with your red or your carrot, you could have used your starter and just kind of set the starter. And then you could special summon out a blue here and then add a Pixies from deck to hand. So you have that in hand. You also have more material to use off your IP. So you don't have to use one of these guys for your IP summon. But essentially because you have this in your hand, this is a negate, this is a negate and a pop. And then once it pops, you get to add something, add a card from deck to hand. They're locked here. Then you also have whatever 3 cards that you started with in your hand off of this 2-card combo. Running this out, we're briefly going to look at 2 different 1-card combos that we have in the deck. So we have normal summon Nimble Beaver. We use Beaver's effect to special summon out our copy of Nimble Angler. Then from here, we use 2 of our Angler and our Beaver to summon out our copy of Spright, which is hiding. Here we have Sprint. We use the Sprint effect to send the second copy of our Nimble Angler, and then special summon out our 2 copies of Nimble Beaver. From here, we can simply use our Sprint, or we can use our 2 Beavers, doesn't really matter, to make our copy of Gigantic Spright. You detach one for your Gigantic Spright. And from here, you'd probably want to special summon out rather than using your Ibbly lock, just something like your blue. Then you can use your blue to add your copy of Jet, special summon your Jet, add your copy of Starter. Then depending on what you need, you can add your copy of Red or special summon your copy of Red, or you can special summon your copy of Carrot. You can grab a Pixies from deck to hand, whatever you want. But this is just basically, assuming that you have all hand traps, you're going to end on a board like this. And because we have the blue and the Jet, we can actually make our copy of Gym Buster. So you will have a minimum of 2 monster negates and Ascend with your Sprint. So just off your Nimble Beaver, you get your entire, like, your best possible lineup of just Sprite cards, because the Gym Buster is made off your Sprite cards. The only difference is that this is not an attack mode, so it only has 1600 defense because it doesn't have a Link monster underneath it. But that's essentially how you would go about using the singular copy, and then you just have all your hand traps or whatever other junk that you drew into, which would only essentially be hand traps or board breakers, like your something, unless you just bricked on like a copy of Ibbly or something. You would have your more extenders, you'd have your more hand traps that they have to deal with in your hand. Alright guys, so our final 1-card combo of the video is assuming that you just start with 1 copy of Sprite Starter in your hand, and the rest of everything is all hand traps. So we're going to activate our Sprite Starter for a copy of Sprite Blue, then we're going to activate Blue's trigger effect for a copy of Sprite Jet, and then Jet's effect for our second copy of Sprite Starter. Next, we're going to use the Blue and the Jet to make our copy of Sprint, and then we're going to use Sprint's effect in order to send our copy of Nimble Angler and special out our 2 copies of Nimble Beaver. Next up, we're going to use 1 copy of our Sprint and 1 copy of our Beaver in order to summon out our Gigantic. Then we're going to use Gigantic's effect here in order to special summon out our copy of Ibbly. Next up, we're going to use the Ibbly and the Beaver. So the Beaver goes to Grave, and then they get their Ibbly on their side of the field. And then you get to summon out either your copy of IP or your SP. It's kind of up to you here. If you want to use IP on their turn or whatever, you can kind of just get the extra effect off the SP, or you can just summon XP now, and then you use on their turn. You'll have basically your starter set, and then you can special summon out your copy of Spright Red on their turn. So you have your Spright, Gigantic Spright at 3200 because the sprint is underneath him. You have your copy of Spright Red, which can pop off of either of these, as well as your negation, as well as you have your Masquerena or your IP. Here you already have IP, or you have your Masquerena target with the Spright Red and the Gigantic Spright here, and they are also under their Ably lock. So you have a good amount of interactions here. If you have a lot of hand traps in hand, then you basically use, especially if you have something like your copy of Ghost Ogre in hand, you can pop off their normal summon, and then they're stuck with an IP or the Iblis, sorry. And then you're just basically able to pick away at things with their hand, and then also having one or two means of interaction as well as a lock on your board. So that does it, guys, for the video. Those are your combos. Those are your deck profile. Main deck, side deck, extra deck. And this is my first video back doing Yu-Gi-Oh videos. I'm going to do more videos in the future, do playtesting videos, more deck profiles, and just kind of look at more decks that I'm looking to get into and help you guys get educated while I get educated and getting back into the game. So if you guys want to see more videos in the future, drop a sub. Let me know what kind of videos or what kind of decks you'd like me to look at. I'm going to do a series of going to locals and picking up some cards. I'm currently working on making Vanquish Soul, so you're going to see some videos about Vanquish Soul in the near future. And yeah, so thanks for guys watching the video. If you stuck around to the end, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get this channel monetized. I need to hit 500 subscribers, and I need to get another couple hundred or a couple thousand, I think, channel views, or tens of thousands channel views. I don't exactly know. I think it's actually watch hours, I think. So I think I need 200 more watch hours, and then like 300, 400 more subs. I need to hit 500 subs. I'm currently at 130 while I'm filming this video. So if you guys want to blow up this video for me, I'm going to be making a lot more videos once my channel gets monetized, once I'm able to get some channel members on the go and everything like that. So please, if you can do anything, share this video with a friend, anything to help me kind of get into my space, and then I'll be able to make a lot more videos, educational videos, a lot more in-depth videos than this for you guys. Do that, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Love you a lot. Bye.